What did the world actually look like to the very first humans? No satellites, no globes, no photographs from space, just the horizon wherever they happened to be standing. For most of our history, nobody knew what shape the Earth even was. Nobody knew how big it was, or what was on the other side of it. Some people thought the world ended a few days' walk from their village. Others thought the sky was a solid dome, sitting on top of a flat disk. This is the story of how humans slowly built a picture of the planet they live on, from total darkness to a photograph of Earth from space. Let's start at the very beginning. For early hunter-gatherers, the world meant something very small. It meant the valley you lived in, the river you drank from, the forest you hunted in. There was no concept of countries, no concept of continents. If you walked for 3 days and reached unfamiliar land, that was the edge of the world. Beyond it, nobody knew, and most people never needed to know. Early cosmologies weren't built on measurement. They were built on story. Many cultures pictured the sky as a dome or a tent stretched above a flat Earth. Some imagined the land floating on a cosmic ocean. Some believed the world rested on the back of a giant animal. None of this was wrong by the standards of the time. It was simply unmeasured. There was no way to check, no way to travel far enough to test the theory. For tens of thousands of years, this was simply how humans understood their world. Then around 2,600 years ago, something changed. In the city of Sippar, in ancient Mesopotamia, someone pressed a stylus into wet clay. What they created still exists today. It's called the Imago Mundi, the oldest known map of the world. It's small, barely the size of your hand. At the center, Babylon sitting on the Euphrates River. Around it, a ring labeled the Bitter River, the ocean the Babylonians believed circled the earth. Beyond that ring, the map shows triangular regions, labeled with mythical creatures and distant half-imagined lands. This wasn't just geography, it was myth and measurement, fused into one object. For the first time, someone had tried to draw the entire known world. But known world meant something very specific. It meant everything within a few hundred miles of Babylon. Beyond that ring was simply the unknown. A little over a century later, in the Greek city of Miletus, someone tried again. His name was Anaximander. He drew what's considered the first Greek map of the world, circular in shape, centered near the Aegean Sea. Europe, Asia, and Africa, surrounded by one continuous ocean. It was still wildly inaccurate. But it was based on something new, reasoned observation. Anaximander also proposed something radical for his time. He believed the Earth was suspended in space, resting on nothing at all. No elephant, no turtle, no pillar, just floating. This idea would take centuries to be taken seriously, but the question had been asked, and it couldn't be unasked. 2 centuries later, in Alexandria, Egypt, a scholar took this even further. His name was Eratosthenes. He heard something curious about the city of Syene, far to the south. On the summer solstice, at noon, sunlight fell straight down a well there, with no shadow at all. In Alexandria, on that same day, a vertical stick still cast a small shadow. Eratosthenes realized this difference could only happen on a curved surface. He measured the angle of that shadow, about 7.2 degrees. He knew the distance between the two cities, and with nothing but geometry, he calculated the circumference of the entire Earth. His result was remarkably close to the real number we know today. No satellites, no rockets, just a well, a stick, and a shadow. For the first time in history, humans didn't just guess the size of their planet. They measured it. But knowing the Earth's size didn't mean anyone had actually seen most of it. Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, and still, most maps only grew a little at a time. By the medieval period in Europe, a new style of map became common. Historians call them TO maps, a circle divided into 3 sections by a T-shaped body of water, Asia on top, Europe and Africa below. Jerusalem was often placed at the very center of the map. Not because of geography, because of belief. These maps weren't really meant for navigation. They were meant to show the world's spiritual order, and at the very edges of these maps, the unknown returned. Cartographers began sketching sea monsters in unexplored waters. Warning phrases appeared at the margins. "Here be dragons" became almost a real, recorded warning on some old maps and globes. It wasn't just decoration, It was an honest admission. We genuinely do not know what's out there. For most people alive during this era, the vast majority of Earth simply didn't exist to them. No maps, no stories, no knowledge at all. Whole oceans, whole continents, entirely blank. Then, starting in the 1400s, that blank space began to shrink rapidly. Sailors pushed further than ever before, funded by kings chasing trade routes and gold. Coastlines were charted, islands were named, oceans were crossed. Each voyage added a few more lines to the edges of the known world. By the 1500s, mapmakers were sketching entire continents most Europeans had never seen. The unknown didn't disappear, but it kept shrinking, decade after decade. By the 1700s, most of Earth's coastlines had finally been charted. The interiors of continents remained mysterious for much longer. Mountains, deserts, and rainforests stayed blank on the map far into the 1800s. It would take until the 20th century for humans to fill in nearly everything. And then, in 1968, something happened that changed everything again. A spacecraft called Apollo 8 was orbiting the moon. One of the astronauts looked out the window and saw something no human had ever witnessed directly. The Earth, rising over the lunar horizon. A small blue, impossibly fragile-looking sphere, hanging alone in the darkness. He grabbed a camera and took the photo almost by instinct. It became known as Earthrise. For the first time in 300,000 years of human existence, we saw our entire planet, all at once, with our own eyes. No triangles at the edge of a clay tablet. No sea monsters, no blank spaces marked unknown. Just the whole, real curved Earth floating in space, exactly as Anaximander once guessed. 4 years later, in 1972, another photo went even further. Astronauts aboard Apollo 17 captured a fully lit, complete view of Earth. It became known as the Blue Marble, one of the most reproduced photographs in human history. Think about the distance we traveled to get here. From a hunter who only knew the valley they stood in, to a Babylonian scribe pressing triangles into wet clay, to a Greek philosopher guessing the Earth floated in space, to a scientist measuring the planet with nothing but a shadow, to an astronaut photographing the whole Earth from 240,000 miles away. Every single one of them was trying to answer the exact same question. What does the world actually look like? For 99% of human history, nobody could fully answer that question. We built the answer piece by piece, myth by myth, measurement by measurement, and the full picture, the one you can pull up on your phone right now in seconds, is barely 50 years old. So the next time you casually glance at a map or spin a globe on a shelf, remember what it actually took to make that image possible. Thousands of years, thousands of people, all trying to answer one very simple, very human question. Where exactly are we? If this made you see your next Google Maps search a little differently. Subscribe for more True Stories history forgot to teach us, because sometimes the most incredible journey is just learning what your own planet looks like.